So, like, your current is where you're kind of at now. Like, within your last couple of years of making your mark here in the capital, like, calling this home and, you know, like, Dreamgirls being one of the shows that, like, yeah, it kind of made you, I guess, kind of relocate here. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this was crazy because I was working on Broadway as a tap dancing egg
Mm.
named Eggy White.
Oh, yeah.
And I would pop out this egg and I would say, and I am telling you, I'm not going to be an omelet. No, no, no. That was my part. And that was crazy. So I was Eggy White.
Yeah.
And then I get called from my agent and he's like, hey, do you want to play Effie White in the West End? And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
This is like a trick question. And he's like, and can you come tonight? Tonight? Move from New York to London tonight.
Oh, my God.
And I said, okay, I need like 3 days because I have a concert coming up on weekend, which is so stupid. I should have just left in. And like,
I get
so
that.
Crazy.
Though. Sometimes the news is so good.
Yeah.
You're like, hold on, wait, let me just.
Literally.
Like, I've done that.
You know what I mean?
Before. Yeah.
I was like, I just need 3 days to like sort myself out. So then I did the concert on the weekend, and it became like a farewell concert to all my friends and my friends there. And then I flew to London. I had never lived here before in my life.
What was your first perceptions of coming here?
Well, I was staying near Buckingham Palace.
Oh,
so
right.
I was staying in Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
So I get there and I was like, is the Queen really like my neighbor right now? Like, what's happening? I can like go to Buckingham Palace and get some sugar. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
This was crazy. I was
Yeah.
like, what's happening? And so I'm staying near Buckingham Palace. And then I have 5 days of rehearsal. And I literally got here on the night that it opened because Amber Riley had gotten pneumonia. And so they needed someone to replace her like right away because the show had just opened.
Yeah.
And so I learned the show in 5 days. And then I was on. And no one knew I was even here. So even when on my first night, they put like a little sign, very small, because they wanted everybody to be mad.
Yeah.
So they put like a little sign. The role of Effie White will be played by MARISHA Wallace. And she has this like, you know, celebrity entrance where they're like, Effie! And everyone goes, yay! Because it's Amber Riley. And then they went, Effie! And I came out and they went, ugh. We're literally.
The vibes weren't vibing.
They were like,
Oh, shit.
They were so mad.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really know, and they didn't know who I was. So I was like, well, this is going to be an interesting ride. But then by the time I sung the big number, and I'm telling you, they stood mid-show.
Wow.
And you know it's big for the Brits, because they don't stand for nothing.
No, they don't.
Unless they're at the queue at the Sainsbury or Tesco, they don't stand. They don't know.
In theatre, especially West End theatre.
No.
I think it's a politeness thing as well, though.
They don't stand.
Sometimes.
They jumped to their feet. People were crying, falling out. And I was like, oh, my God, I really feel like I caught fire. And I was like, oh, this is where I was supposed to be. And before I even got the gig for London, I was in like a really bad relationship. I was on my knees praying to God to get me out of this relationship. Like, you know how you pray, but you're like, I'm praying, but I'm in my bed.
Yeah.
I got a pillow and put it on the floor next to the bed. Like, I was like, God, get me out of this. If you can get me out of this, I will, you know, follow what you say, and I will, you know, follow my path. And then I got that call. And I was like, oh, this was the thing. I was like, this was the answer. Okay.
Yeah.
So then when I, you know, did well in Dreamgirls, I was only supposed to be there 3 weeks. And then they were like, you can't leave. Well, we can't do the show without you.
Yeah.
And then I was her alternate. So I did 1 to 2 shows a week. And then she was out a lot because it was just a really hard show. It's hard for any performer. It was her first Broadway show, first big show. So I just stayed, and then we shared the role, and then I took over the role. And then I was there 2 years doing that show.
Oh, wow.
I know. And then I was like, well, why don't I just see if this works for me? On Broadway, I was not getting these big roles like this. Like, Broadway's very behind as far as, like, casting people of color in lead roles. And here in the UK, for some reason, they didn't really care. They were like, okay, why not? And I think it's because theater is subsidized here, so by the government, that helps them to be able to take risk. It costs so much to produce a show on Broadway. For instance, it's like 4 times as much to produce a show on Broadway than it is here. So I understand, but there's also systematic racism. There's also like, there's not roles being maid. So I stayed here, and then I got waitress next, and then
yes, because you've done that in 2019.
Yeah,
Yes.
2019.
Yeah.
So I did that at the Adelphi, and I'm actually going back to the Adelphi March 11th to do my solo concert. So it's like a full circle moment. I'm going back to where I did waitress, and I'm doing like all the shows that I've been in. I'm doing songs from all those shows and have like a big celebration. But yeah, so I just kept continuing here because I was like, why not? Also, I had watched Cynthia Erivo go the other way, and she was very successful in America. So I was like, well, why don't I do one over here? I'm gonna come here and be successful, see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's it. Just it kept going, and then they started allowing me to do roles that had never been done by Black women before. So I got Ado Annie in Oklahoma. Now this is notoriously like skinny white woman, but like it was that's always been the type for that part. And then I did it at the Young Vic. Kwame was the artistic director at the time, and that was the game changer here. People were like, who is this? Where have you been? And by this point I had been there like 4 years.
Yeah.
But it was just because that role, because it's part of like the classics, the canon, like Guys and Dolls, Oklahoma, like those ones. For me to go in and I like did my thing with it and I changed it, it just kind of, it started changing things. And then I got Adelaide from that, and I worked with Sir Nicholas Heitner on Guys and Dolls. And that one was really the one. So both of those I got nominated for an Olivier. And that was when people really started to pay attention.
That's when it was just like, oh, we need to.
Yeah.
We need to go to work now.
Yeah. But this was like 20 years of me fighting for this, because the thing that I always was cast at was the sassy Black friend, sassy fat friend, you know, like sidekick. But I knew there was more to me than that, but I was never allowed
to
show
and
it.
play those kind of roles.
And I just was never a person to like take no for an answer. Like I was like, but why? I was there on Broadway when Hamilton was there and Color Purple was there, when they all opened at the same time. And it was like, oh, it was so diverse. And then the next season it was all back to the way it was before. So it was like, okay. So then I was like, well, if they're not going to let us do our own shows, I'm going to do your shows. Like, we're going to be...
When you start working here then, like, as someone in theatre, do you feel like... Because, you know, you spoke about it just a little bit there, where you talk about how people will get typecasted in roles, and there'll be certain stigmas attached to some people getting a part and not getting a part. Have you ever felt that here? I only say that from, like, when I've gone over to the States, and they'd be like, oh, like, who's your like Black historical figures?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, yours, innit? Like,
true.
Yeah.
Because, like, who is the Black British historical figures that y'all really could do? You have them.
Yeah.
But I do see what you're saying.
I think in terms of, like, in school, we would learn about the same people.
Yeah.
That, you know, across the pond they would learn
You'll learn about Rosa Parks as well.
Yes. Yeah. We would learn those stories. So I guess, like, your perception of working here, did you ever feel like it was mirrored in some way? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, because racism is different here. It's still here. It's quieter. It's not as like loud. You know what I mean? It's here.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of like people who are willing to take the risk, I guess. I don't know, like they're willing to say, no, that's okay, because I feel like it's just a little more diverse. I know everyone has different experiences. Yeah. But what I've experienced is that my team, especially, when I went to them and said I want to play Sally Bowles, no one was like, you can't play Sally Bowles. Everyone was like, absolutely, let's go for it. You know what I'm saying?
It's probably like even like go for it more.
Yeah. They're like, let's break some stuff down. Let's do this. Like, so I felt like I don't think I would have played Sally Bowles in America if I hadn't done it here first. Like, I felt like, but then we had the first Black Elphaba and Wicked here. Yeah. And we're only just now getting Black Elphaba on Broadway. Yeah. All these years later. Because of Cynthia. Do you know what I mean? Because of the Black British woman.
Yes.
now America's like, oh yeah, okay, now
yeah.
it makes sense. But we're just talking about this too, like how you have to go to a different country to be accepted, because there has to be something exotic about your blackness, which is very interesting.
And it's interesting you said that, because I feel like when we were talking before of going over to different places and people understand my kind of comedy, because the kind of comedy that I grew up watching was Def Comedy Jam, was Martin Lawrence, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock. So that's the stuff that I learned from. So it's until like I was able to showcase. But I think for me it helped more because I had my own fan base.
Yeah.
So by the time I'd got my own fan base, people was like, oh, well, this is, he's got his own thing. Whereas I think definitely like on the circuit, it was, okay, cool. Like, you're wearing a hoodie. Like, what's your vibe? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's the same with television. I feel like sometimes I have done television here, and it is like, oh, like, why, you're a bit loud. Like, why are you shouting? Like,
I feel like I'm always shouting. Brits are so quiet.
Yeah, it's just ingrained in like.
You just speak quiet. Like when I did my first radio, they're like, "Hello, we have MARISHA Wallace here today. She's so excited." And I was like, "Hey!" I was like, "Why is everybody so quiet?" But it's just the culture difference. It's true.
And I think that's the thing where, when you go over to the other side of the pond, it's a bigger place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you do have like Hollywood, but you also have Black Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's something we have here in the UK.
No.
We don't have like, we don't have our black version of Downton Abbey, essentially. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe Bridgerton is like that.
Yeah, but even Bridgerton feels like a global thing.
It is global.
It didn't feel like
and
something.
It's more popular in America.
Yeah. It didn't feel like something that. I don't feel like that would have just popped on ITV on a Sunday at 8 o'clock.
It's very interesting because
like
I hear from my Black British friends how, especially the women, how they don't get celebrated as much here, and that how they've had to go to America to be celebrated.
Yeah, of course.
And lots of them are going to America to be celebrated. And then I came here and I was celebrated, even though I am Black as well. But it's like, they're more exotic to the Americans because they have a British accent. I'm more exotic. But it's so weird. But this is the balancing act of being Black. It's like, how palatable can I be? Oh, you're not Black, you're British. You're not Black, you're American. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So why can't I just be myself? You know what I'm saying? But that's just the way of the world sometimes. And I do feel like I've done really, really well on television and things here. But some of my Black British girlfriends have not gotten the opportunities that I've gotten, because I do feel like my Americanism, being American does help me. But like, how can we change? Like, how can we change? This calling it out, I think, has helped. I remember when Cynthia and Ariana Grande were on the red carpet for Wicked, for the premiere, and I was there. And then the next day the papers came out and we didn't see Cynthia at all. It was just pictures of Ariana Grande. And she's Black and British. Like, this is your girl. This is your girl. Why is she not on the cover?
Yeah, man.
But that blew my mind, because I was like, oh, yeah, the press. They're like, nah, these two girls in the hottest movie.
Yeah.
She's Black and British, and she's not on the cover of the Daily Mail or whatever paper. I just think that's very interesting, and I think it's something that we're always fighting. And then people question us and are like, "Oh, racism, no, that's not real." It is real. It's real. We're fighting it every day.
Yes, what's good, people? My name is Mo Gilligan, and you just watched my podcast highlights of the beginning, middle, and end podcast. Now, if you did like this, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you want to catch the whole thing, I'm talking the whole juicy thing, make sure you go listen to it on the Global Player or wherever you catch your podcast. Take care. Peace.